The galaxy was burning. Humanity's last stronghold, Bastion 9, stood on the edge of annihilation. A once thriving colony nestled within the ruins of a forgotten planet, Bastion 9 had become a fortress, its walls teeming with battle-hardened soldiers and desperate refugees. Commander Leon Voss surveyed the crumbling battlements, his jaw clenched as the alien forces massed just beyond the horizon. The combined armies of the Zarkath, Directions and Kerwell-X were preparing for the final strike, an assault no human had survived. "Commander, our defenses won't hold," Lieutenant Mara spoke quietly at his side, her voice carrying the weight of their shared despair. "We're out of time." Leon didn't respond. He didn't need to. Everyone knew the truth, there was no hope. They had fought for decades, resisting wave after wave of alien invaders, but now it was over. The coalition of alien races had broken through their last defenses. Bastion 9 was the end. Yet, amidst the fear, whispered rumors floated among the ranks, legends of a warrior from humanity's past. A man named Shanggu who had once wielded a sword so powerful, he could decimate entire armies in a single stroke. The story had become a myth, a tale passed down from soldier to soldier to inspire hope in a hopeless war. Leon had never believed it, until now. Without warning, the ground shook violently beneath his feet. The sky above Bastion 9 darkened, not from the shadow of approaching warships, but from something far more ancient, something primal. A shimmering figure appeared in the sky, descending with unimaginable speed. It wasn't a ship or a weapon, but a man with a blade that seemed to burn with the light of 1,000 stars. "Shanggu," Mara whispered in disbelief, her eyes wide as she gripped Leon's arm. The figure landed in the center of Bastion 9, his presence alone forcing everyone to take a step back. His black armor gleamed under the dying sun, and his sword, long, ancient, and etched with symbols no one recognized, glowed faintly in his hand. The air itself seemed to bend around him, as though reality could barely contain the power he wielded. Shanggu said nothing. He didn't need to. With a single, fluid motion, he turned toward the horizon where the alien armies gathered. The moment his gaze locked onto them, the battle lines froze. The alien commanders, sensing something far beyond their comprehension, hesitated. Then, with one swift, blinding stroke of his sword, the impossible happened. A wave of pure energy erupted from Shanggu's blade, a surge so powerful it tore through the enemy ranks like they were nothing. One instant, thousands of alien soldiers stood ready to destroy humanity's last hope. In the next, they were gone, obliterated in a flash of light. Not a single one survived. Leon couldn't move. He couldn't think. All he could do was stare as the legend of Shanggu came to life before his eyes. The forgotten warrior had returned. The battlefield was silent. Where once there had been the deafening roar of engines and alien war cries, now there was only the hum of Shanggu's sword as he stood at the edge of the human defenses. His black armor, unmarked and pristine, was in stark contrast to the ravaged landscape around him. The alien hordes, once poised to obliterate Bastion 9, had been wiped out in an instant. Thousands, gone with a single swing of his blade. Commander Leon Voss could barely comprehend what he had just witnessed. A moment ago, Bastion 9 had been on the brink of destruction. Now the impossible had happened. Shanggu had turned the tide of the battle with nothing more than his sword. The alien forces, those who had survived the initial wave, began to regroup, their hesitation palpable. The Zarkath, towering beasts with gleaming exoskeletons, hissed in confusion. The Directions, battle-hardened and relentless, paused in their advance. Even the Kerwell-X, their insectoid movements typically precise and swift, faltered. They didn't understand what they were facing. And in truth, neither did Leon. "Commander," Mara's voice broke through the stillness, her eyes fixed on Shanggu. "We should move. We need to press the advantage while they're disoriented." Leon nodded, though he couldn't take his eyes off the lone figure standing between them and the alien forces. The way Shanggu moved, the way his sword had cleaved through their enemies, it was beyond anything Leon had ever seen. This wasn't just a soldier or even a warrior. This was something else. Before he could give an order, the alien army surged forward again, this time with renewed fury. The ground shook as they charged, their war machines roaring to life, towering tanks and hovering assault ships unleashing a storm of plasma fire. It was a full-on assault, more concentrated, more desperate than ever before. They knew that if they didn't stop Shanggu now, they would lose. Shanggu remained still, his sword lowered at his side, his eyes fixed on the approaching onslaught. Then, with a movement so swift it blurred the line between man and myth, he charged forward. Leon watched, his breath caught in his throat. Shanggu was a blur of motion, his sword cutting through the air with deadly precision. He moved through the alien ranks like a shadow, his blade flashing as it cut down dozens, hundreds in mere moments. Plasma blasts dissipated as they neared him, as if the universe itself was bending to protect him. No alien could touch him. No weapon could slow him. The direction's heavy artillery crumbled before his strikes, and the KOLX's swarm tactics failed to surround him. With every swing of his sword, Shanggu carved through the enemy as if they were made of paper, his strikes more a force of nature than an act of combat. By the time the dust settled, the alien armies lay in ruins. What had taken humanity decades to fight, Shanggu had ended in minutes. He stood alone, his sword still humming with untapped power, the last line of defense between the human race and oblivion. Leon stepped forward, his voice barely above a whisper. "What are you?" Shanggu turned to face him, his expression unreadable. "I am the sword that brings the end." The aftermath of the battle left Bastion 9 in stunned silence. The alien coalition, once an unstoppable force, was gone, reduced to ash by Shanggu's blade. Yet, despite the victory, an unsettling tension lingered in the air. Commander Leon Voss approached Shanggu cautiously, his mind racing with questions. The man had appeared out of nowhere, wielding a power that defied explanation. He had saved them from annihilation, but there was something about him, something unearthly that Leon couldn't shake. "Thank you," Leon finally said, his voice tight. "But what happens now? Is it over?" Shanggu, his eyes scanning the desolate battlefield, remained silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of grim certainty in his words. "This battle is finished, but the war is far from over." Leon frowned. "The war? You just wiped out their entire army. What's left?" Shanggu turned to face him, his gaze piercing. "You misunderstand, Commander. The alien coalition you fought was never the true threat. They were pawns, manipulated by a power far greater than any of us. A being that has shaped the course of this galaxy for eons. An entity known as the Void Emperor." "The Void Emperor?" Mara, who had been standing nearby, stepped forward, disbelief etched across her face. "What are you talking about? We've been fighting these alien races for decades. They've nearly wiped us out. Now you're saying they weren't the ones behind it?" Shanggu nodded. "The Zarkath, Directions and KOLX were merely tools. Their desire to conquer was fueled by the influence of the Void Emperor. It thrives on chaos, on war. It manipulates entire civilizations, turning them against one another, feeding off the destruction." Leon's pulse quickened. "And where is this Void Emperor now?" Shanggu's grip tightened around his sword. "It has remained hidden, lurking in the shadows of this galaxy for millennia. It has been waiting for the right moment, gathering strength as species destroyed one another. Now that the galaxy is weakened, it plans to reveal itself and consume everything, starting with humanity." The weight of Shanggu's words pressed down on Leon, a cold realization settling in. All the bloodshed, all the wars they had fought, had been orchestrated by something far beyond their understanding. The alien armies had been terrifying, but this Void Emperor? It was something else entirely. Leon's thoughts raced. If the Void Emperor is as powerful as you say, why now? Why reveal itself? Shanggu's expression darkened. "Because of me. My return has forced its hand. Long ago I faced the Void Emperor. I failed to stop it. But this time, it knows I will not fail again." Mara's voice trembled slightly. "So, you're here to finish what you started?" Shanggu's eyes blazed with determination. "Yes. But I cannot do it alone." Leon took a deep breath, the weight of the decision ahead crashing over him. This wasn't just about defending Bastion 9 anymore. This was about the survival of humanity itself. "We'll fight," Leon said firmly. "Tell us what we need to do." Shanggu nodded, his gaze hardening. "Then prepare yourselves. The Void Emperor is coming." The journey to the heart of the galaxy had been swift but ominous. Shanggu, Commander Leon Voss, and a small squad of elite human soldiers traveled deep into the Void Nebula, where space itself twisted unnaturally, the stars bending into dark, fractured shapes. Here, the laws of physics barely held, and the presence of the Void Emperor was felt in every shadow, every ripple of the void. Leon stood at the front of the ship, gripping the control panel tightly, eyes fixed on the swirling abyss ahead. His heart pounded, but he kept his focus sharp. This was it, the final battle. Everything they had fought for would either end in victory or total destruction. Behind him, the soldiers murmured nervously, each one aware that they faced a threat beyond any they had imagined. Shanggu stood silent, his sword resting at his side, the faint glow of its ancient power flickering ominously. He hadn't said much during the journey, but his presence alone filled the crew with a sense of both awe and dread. As they approached the center of the nebula, the ship's sensors began to malfunction. The Void Emperor's influence was bending reality itself, distorting time and space. Suddenly the ship was ripped from its course and thrown into the heart of a massive, dark arena. An ethereal plane where space was fluid and gravity seemed to flicker between dimensions. And there, in the center of the darkness, it appeared. The Void Emperor. It was beyond comprehension, a colossal, multidimensional being, its form shifting between realities. At times, it appeared as a towering, shadowy figure with countless eyes. At others, it was a mass of swirling energy and void. Its voice echoed across space, deep and resonant, reverberating through the minds of everyone present. Shanggu, you have returned to die once more. Leon felt the weight of the Emperor's presence crush his chest, but Shanggu stepped forward, unshaken. I failed once, he said, his voice low but unwavering, but not this time. With a fluid motion, Shanggu raised his sword, its glow intensifying, illuminating the darkness. The Emperor moved, its tendrils of void energy lashing out. Instantly, the human soldiers opened fire, their weapons barely scratching the surface of the Emperor's immense form. It was too vast, too powerful. Shanggu, however, was undeterred. He leaped forward, his blade flashing through the air, slicing through the Emperor's shadowy tendrils with ease. But each strike seemed to do little against the core of the creature. It was a battle not just of strength, but of existence itself. Commander, Mara shouted from the ship. We're losing time. This space is collapsing. Leon clenched his fists, realizing the truth. Shanggu's blade, as powerful as it was, couldn't destroy the Void Emperor in its current form. They needed something more. Shanggu's voice rang out, cutting through the chaos. This is the only way. He raised his sword higher, and for the first time, its glow became blinding, searing white light that consumed the darkness. He was calling upon the final, forbidden power of the sword, a power that could end the Void Emperor but at the cost of everything, including himself. Shanggu, no! Leon shouted, but it was too late. With a final, devastating slash, Shanggu brought the blade down. Time itself seemed to stop as the sword cut through not just the Void Emperor, but the fabric of the universe. The Emperor screamed, a sound so piercing it tore through dimensions. In one instant, the Emperor was gone, obliterated by the power of the sword. But so was Shanggu. The light faded, and silence returned to the nebula. The Void Emperor had been destroyed and the galaxy saved, but Shanggu, the warrior who had once stood against gods, was no more. Leon collapsed to his knees, staring into the void where Shanggu had vanished. A legend lost to the universe once again. And yet, in that silence, humanity found hope. They had survived.